The Next Generation, featuring ethics and journalism. Media can be a powerful tool due to its persuasive ability to manipulate information and disseminate them in a vast area simultaneously. Journalism proved its worth during the past by helping the world create revolutions that changed the course of the future. So we should know how to use the media effectively in order to achieve the common good. There are laws that governs the media as a tool, but it is the moral codes of a journalist gives him the quality of a good journalist. Besides, in a country like the Philippines, laws are incomplete rules with loopholes which makes it hard to decide. So the next generation of journalists must first put ethics above the law, in order to be successful in serving the people very well and disseminating information that concerns the public. Here are some codes of ethics in journalism. Presented to you by The Next Generation, featuring ethics and journalism.
As a journalist, you must ensure that your information is reliable from a credible source. Gossips or sudden information must be investigated thoroughly for you to discover carefully which should be published and which shouldn't.
Diligently seek out subjects of news stories to give them the opportunity to respond to allegations of wrongdoing. Identify sources whenever feasible. The public is entitled to as much information as possible on sources' reliability. If possible, avoid undercover or other surreptitious methods of gathering information except when traditional open methods will not yield information vital to the public. Use of such methods should be explained as part of the story.
Accuracy and timely distribution of information are practices of good journalism. As a journalist, one must be directed toward bringing the highest quality news to the public. To be effective is to be accurate.
Test the accuracy of information from all sources and exercise care to avoid inadvertent error. Numbers and dates should be studied well and accurate use of words should be used.
As a journalist, you must practice your profession without manipulation. Conforming the pressures that confront the field of media practice is misleading.
A journalist must act independently. They should be free of obligation to any interest other than the public's right to know.
Personal desires and interests should not blind you to the service of truth. As a journalist, you must not let your own motives influence your work. Show compassion for those who may be affected adversely by the news coverage. Use words that show sensitivity in dealing with news.
Be sensitive when seeking or using interviews or photographs of those affected by tragedy or grief.
Be cautious in reporting about juvenile suspects or victims of sex crime. Specialized minorities should be given consideration.
There are information that could produce harmful effects when aired or published. So, as a journalist, you should know what information should be for the interest of the public.
As a journalist, be accountable. Aim for a perfect news article, but always admit mistakes and correct them promptly. Also, expose the unethical practices by other journalists and news media.
March 11, 2013. An article entitled, Sex and Commodification, Students Being Auctioned in UPV became the center of the issue during those time. It was an online article posted in the Philippine Online Chronicles. It was one of the articles that violated most of the ethical codes of a journalist but none in the laws because the Philippines currently has no laws in cyberspace related media. The picture that was first used by the author was showing bodies of minors, but the picture was changed after a few days. One of the ethical codes was, give voice to the voiceless. Official and unofficial sources of information can be equally valid. But the article did not give any chances for the other party to be included in the article.
What is the problem with the article is, it is too biased. It is too biased because the article only talked about the bad things of the auction night, but failed to put an image that would stabilize the perception of the readers. Furthermore, the harm was not minimized due to the fact that the article received approximately 13,000 comments, and some of them, or maybe most of them, are negative and violent reactions.
Clearly, the writer did not give any compassion for those who may be affected by the article published online. He also wasn't cautious in identifying the juvenile suspects or victims of sexual crimes that the author implied.
Our starting point this week is Mogadishu, where being a journalist is to take your life and put it in the hands of others.
A suicide bomb attack on a restaurant in Mogadishu.
It's the worst time to be a journalist in Somalia today.
The two suicide bombers were striking at journalists.
The threat comes from so many different places. It's not just one group that's killing journalists.
There's no law to protect you if you cover sensitive stories.
46 journalists have been killed in Somalia since the war started in the early 90s. 13 have been killed this year. And I don't think that it's going to get any easier for journalists.
Journalists should be honest, fair and courageous in gathering, reporting and interpreting information.
But let us not forget that an ethical journalist treats sources, subjects and colleagues as human beings deserving of respect.
University of the Philippines Visayas is an institution that promotes honor and excellence. It is just fitting that the country expects graduates with greater quality in every field, especially journalism, not only in the aspects of skills, but also in moral values. So you, our aspiring journalist, must practice ethics, because the future of journalism lies in your hands, in the hands of the next generation.
The Next Generation, featuring Ethics and Journalism.